Now let's check out Shem's descendants in verses 21 through 31. Look at verse 21. Let's read this verse together. Verse 21. Let's go. Sons were also born to Shem, whose older brother was Japheth. Shem was the ancestor of all the sons of Eber. Among the descendants of Shem, the representatives are the sons of Eber, Peleg and Joktan. In describing Shem's descendants, Genesis emphasizes the importance of the sons of Eber, saying Shem was the ancestor of all the sons of Eber. Actually, Eber was the fourth generation of Shem, and then his sons, of course, fifth generation. But at the beginning of describing Shem's descendants, the passage comes up with Eber and his sons. From the name Eber comes the title for Israel, Hebrew. We call them Hebrews. That's what the Bible says. We call them Hebrews. Based on this, someone said God loves coffee. How does he know? Hebrews. When we read the Bible, we see the word Hebrew, and we wonder where it came from. Some people suggest that the word Hebrew, whose root word means to cross over, describes Abram crossing over the two rivers of the Euphrates and the Tigris to come to the promised land. But actually, that root word for Hebrew is Eber, which means to cross over or to pass over, or the region beyond. According to Strong's Hebrew dictionary, the word Hebrew means an Eberite, or simply descendant of Eber. That's what the Strong's dictionary says. The English translation of the Septuagint by Brenton, published in 1851, calls Eber as Heber. Then we understand. Eber. Heber. Those people, his descendants are called Hebrews. His name was Heber. Also, ERV, easy to read version. Have you ever read this Bible? Easy to read Bible. ERV, published in 1987, describes Eber as the father of all the Hebrew people. And GMB, Good News Bible, published in 1976 by American Bible Society, translates this expression as Shem was the ancestor of all the Hebrews. So, not only all Israel people, but also all the sons of Eber are called Hebrews. Eber had many sons, but two sons were important, Peleg and Joktan. Peleg, which means division, was named because during his time the land was divided. Before this time, there was one big continent called Pangaea. As many so-called intellectuals suggest, they say that this supercontinent Pangaea existed about 300 million years ago, and it began to break apart about 175 million years ago. How long ago is 300 million years ago? Is that anything? If it was so, is there anything you are related to that time? Nothing is. That's what these people try. They are really crazy, but that's not the case, really. Not 300 million years ago, 175 million years ago. They say that even today, the continents are moving away from each other at the speed of maybe 1 inch per year. They assume that the continents have moved at the same speed all the time. And based on that assumption, in order for 5 continents to be as far as today from one another, from one supercontinent, they said it took 175 million years. Certainly, this is not the case. In the year Peleg was born, such a great event of Pangaea being divided occurred. At that time, big earthquakes were there, and Pangaea broke apart, and continents moved several miles per hour. It was such a huge event. Everyone was really shocked that when Eber had a new son, he wanted to remember that event. So he named his son Peleg. Through Peleg, God's redemption history would go. Abraham was of Peleg. But in describing the sons of Eber, Genesis chapter 10 does not mention about Peleg's descendants at all. Instead, the whole description zeroes in on Joktan's descendants. Both Peleg and Joktan are important. But because since the Bible would talk about Peleg's descendants after this chapter all the way, and Joktan's name would not be mentioned in the Bible at all, God spent a lot of time here in this chapter in describing Joktan's descendants. Joktan had 13 sons. Wow! 13 not just ordinary sons, but great generals, great influential leaders. Maybe he was the greatest recorded in Genesis, among all those recorded in Genesis. He had 13 great sons. And the passage gives us a hint of where they went. Look at verse 30. Let's read this verse together. Verse 30. Let's go. The region where they lived stretched from Mesha toward Sephar in the eastern hill country. The region Joktan's descendants lived stretched from Mesha toward Sephar in the eastern hill country, while others went to west, north, and south. They went to eastbound. From Turkey area or from Babylon area, when we check out the world map, we see in the east the Caucasus Mountains. These areas were called Eastern Hill Country. They went that way. They stretched to Sephar. Based on many ancient documents and Asian history, we can say that Sephar is Siberia today. Until the 16th century, until the Russian Empire occupied Siberia, there was no name for Siberia. There was no name for this area in the whole world. But ancient Koreans called Siberia as Sebar. And then later it was called Siberia. And then today, Siberia or Siberia. So Joktan's descendants stretched to Siberia. Let's check out the map. From Shinar, that area, or going Shem's descendants staying in this area, Middle East. Later, Abraham would be found this area, Ur of the Chaldeans. in the Persian Gulf as an idol worshiper. Then, so this one, they stayed here, and then they stayed here. They stayed here, and then later they would spread this way. So Choktan's the Peleg's descendants stayed in the Middle East, while Choktan's descendants went the eastern hill country all the way, going this way, and then they came to Siberia, and then they came to the Baikal Lake. That's how history goes. So that lake, this lake, Baikal, Lake Baikal, is very important. So when they came to this huge lake, the largest lake in the whole world, when they came to this area, they stayed there for a while. Then some people just stay there continually, becoming native people around Baikal area. And then some people moved continually east. And then, what about the next one? Next one. So they, Baikal Lake, they come, and then this is Bering Sea. They cross the Bering Sea. They say that in those days, there was no Bering Sea. So they could come to the Alaska on foot. Then when they came to Alaska, some people settled there, becoming Eskimos. And then some people traveled more, and then some people settled this in North America. They became Native Americans. And then still some people traveled all the way down, and then they settled in the Central America and South America here. That's how the whole history goes. Okay, let's go back to this one. And then some people, while people went that way, other people went down to Manchuria, and they came to this is the mainland China, and then some people settled here, the east part of China, and they established a kingdom in 2333 BC. That's how it happened. Okay, so when Choktan's descendants came to that area, they traveled all the way from the Middle East and then come to Baikal Lake and came down here and established the kingdom. They also carried the knowledge of God and of the flood. So they tried to remember those things and then teach their descendants by drawing pictures. And then those pictures, as time went by, were simplified and became Chinese letters. That's how some of Chinese letters carry the knowledge of the events of Genesis chapters 1 to 9. That's what happened. And then they also established the law. They had a constitution, 8 commands, 8 laws they had. I checked it out. One, serve the one and only true God with all your heart and purity. That's really amazing, really. That's the first one. And then the second, respect the heaven with your heart and be close to your people. Third, honor your father and mother. And then the fourth, love and help one another. Don't accuse others falsely and do not murder. And then men and women should be in peace with each other. Don't hate others. Do not be jealous of others. Do not be lustful. Then another one, you must yield to each other and plow together. Then another one, don't hurt others by becoming rough and proud. Do not steal or take others' things by force. It's like 10 commandments. Then the description of the 8 commands in an ancient Chinese book called Sanhegyong, written in about 220 BC in China, records 3 of those 8 commands. It says, 1, a murderer shall be put to death. 1, the person who injured others shall compensate with the crops. 1, the person who stole from someone shall be a slave in that house. Wow, pretty fair and just. The Hammurabi in those days, there was the Hammurabi in the Middle East, the Hammurabi kingdom, and then his laws are found. And then his laws, if you sit on the right side, you are guilty. You must be punished. Or if you touch your right ear, you will be punished. That kind of thing. But this one was very civilized, really. While Joktan's family left for Sephar, the other son of Eber, Peleg, stayed in the Middle East. That's why later, Abraham, about 200 years later, was found living in Ur of the Chaldeans, an ancient Babylonian city, as an idol worshiper, losing his faith in God. As of Abraham's time, there were many of Peleg's descendants living in that area, and some of them were really devout. Then we can understand how all of a sudden in Genesis chapter 14, Melchizedek, the priest of the Most High God, appeared. Most likely he was of Peleg. And also Job, a great man of God in the East, who was the contemporary of Abraham, most likely was of Peleg too. So let's sum up Genesis chapter 10 now. From Turkey area or Babylon area where they built the Tower of Babylon. Let's check out the map one more time. So the second one, Japheth's descendants. So this is a Japheth. So west from Shinar to west and north. And then the next one, from Ham's descendants, they stayed in the Middle East, occupied the Palestine, and then the Egypt, and then the Africa. So southbound. Okay, next one. And then later, as time passed by, the population grew in number. Then they spread more widely. So from Shinar, Ham's descendants and Peleg's descendants, because they stayed in the Middle East there. So when they grew in number, they spread to India, and then this one is, what is this one? India, and then the Pakistan, Afghanistan, then Bangladesh, Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, and then the China. I checked out the histories of South China area. These countries' history online quickly. Removing all what they suggest based on, they say, we found this painting in the cave, and then it's about 7,000 years ago. I removed all those things, but based on when they said people appeared, that kind of based on that expression, then the Bangladesh about 2,000 years before Christ, BC, and then the Malaysia is here, BC 2,000 years or so. Indonesia, BC 2,000 years. And then Laos, BC 1500. And then the Chinese history, when you check out, there the legend, they say is confusing. If it is either legend or history, that is the beginning was a Sang dynasty, and before that there was one more dynasty called Ha dynasty. But even Ha dynasty, that one was from 19th century or 2070 BC. So when you think about that's all almost based on written document. Then we can understand from here to here about 2,100 years here, and then 1670 or 700 years, it becomes almost 4,000 years with some maybe 100 years or 200 years gap. So they would come later this way. Okay. Thank you very much. And then I think that's it. Huh? Do we have another one? Another map? This one? Shem's, Choktan's descendants. And the next one, you already check out. And the next one, oh, okay. This way. Then when this way, the three sons of Noah and their descendants would spread the whole world. What about then Australia? Is there here anyone who come from Australia? Australia is completely separated. It's a big island, right? Big island. This is Australia, right? Big island, but people did not go there until when? Later. Which country was it? They sent. They had so many prisoners. Britain. They brought those prisoners to Australia. And then that's the beginning of. So that's how all the beginning goes. Okay, today's message seems a little strange. It's like it's like a seminar, not like a Sunday worship service. Okay, so God reveals everything clearly. It's not like, as many people say, just they come up with their own idea saying, oh, this is our history, not that way. But God makes it very clear to everyone. In the last days, God makes everything clear to everyone.